Attorney General William Barr, who certainly provided cover for much of Donald Trump's awful behavior, is now deciding to break his silence, and in an upcoming book has weighed in on the election lies that Donald Trump and his cronies have been saying following the 2020 general election. Now, this new book is titled Betrayal. It's written by ABC News correspondent Jonathan Karl, and an excerpt from the book has just been published. Barr described the rapidly deteriorating relationship he had with Trump as the then president became more entrenched in his belief that the 2020 election was fraudulent. And in the book, he allegedly tells Karl, if there was evidence of fraud, I had no motive to suppress it, but my suspicion all the way along was that there was nothing there, it was all BS. Now, some would like to applaud William Barr for finally speaking out against Donald Trump, but I would argue, no cookies for you. No cookies for you, I'm sorry. I mean, we're talking about a guy who aided and abetted Donald Trump along the way, especially when it came to the findings of the Mueller report. He intentionally misrepresented what that investigation had indicated. And that's just one of the many ways that William Barr, as Donald Trump's attorney general, helped him provide cover for, again, all sorts of terrible behavior. That's just one example. So the fact that he spoke out against Trump a little bit in a book, please. He's an awful guy.
Yeah, so I agree completely on withholding cookies from Barr. Trump's reaction is hilarious and awful. So of course he rips into Barr. You got the quotes, Kasparian?
I do. So he put out a lengthy statement. Full disclosure, I didn't bother to read the entire statement, but I have excerpts for you.
Okay, I read it because it's macabre, and it's important because he's egging these guys on. I mean, we're gonna tell you a poll about how many Republicans actually believe this nonsense, and he has fake evidence in his statement. That's why I bothered to read through the whole thing. But let's give you the relevant parts here when it comes to Barr, and then we'll talk about it generally.
So Trump, in a lengthy statement on Sunday, decried Barr as a rhino, Republican in name only, who, quote, really let down the American people, end quote. He complained about Barr's handling of the 2020 election and bemoaned that his former attorney general did not sufficiently investigate wrongdoing during the Obama administration. So what was William Barr's official role during the Obama administration, first of all? And what evidence do we have, or any hints do we have that the Obama administration engaged in any questionable business pertaining to elections? I mean, just nonsense. And then let me give you an exact excerpt. He says, now it was revealed that Barr was being pushed to tell lies about the election by Mitch McConnell, another beauty who was worried about damaging the Republicans' chances in the Georgia runoff. What really damaged the Senate Republicans was allowing their races to be rigged and stolen, and worse, the American people to no longer believe their vote matters because spineless rhinos like Bill Barr and Mitch McConnell did nothing. Except Trump, as we now know, and his lawyers went to the courts 60 different times alleging widespread voter fraud, didn't provide a shred of evidence of voter fraud, and lost those court battles, meaning that the election was not rigged and Donald Trump did lose fair and square. Probably because he was so awful on coronavirus that some of the people who had voted for him the first time around maybe decided not to show up the second time around after their family members died. But had he not bungled coronavirus, pretty good chance that he would have won the election. It's just this unwillingness to take responsibility for his massive failures in office.
Yeah, so look, there's a couple of components to this important story. So number one, you've got this, as usual, the lunatic Donald Trump. So there's the somewhat funny parts. If Trump did not have the overwhelming majority of the Republican Party supporting him anymore, this would just be amusing. But unfortunately, he still has an iron grip on the Republican Party. So apparently he told Barr, how the F could you do this to me? Why did you say it about how there was no evidence of election fraud? And Barr said, I said it because there was no evidence of election fraud, right?
But you lied on my behalf before. Why don't you do it again?
Yeah, but he really believes it. He thinks you're supposed to be my lawyer. And in the longer statement, he wrote Attorney General, and in brackets he put in lawyer. First of all, we all know he's a lawyer. That's, yes, the Attorney General, right? He thinks like, probably a lot of people don't know that that's a lawyer. But the second reason he puts it is, he thinks it's his lawyer. He's like, why is my lawyer not telling the lies I want him to tell? That's what I've paid my lawyers to do my whole life, is to lie on my behalf. Why is this guy not lying? I don't get it, right? And that's why he says, why did you do this to me? Because everything's personal with Donald Trump. And then the report is clown central as always. It's back to Trump on Twitter, etc. And here, I'll read you one of the last statements. He says, just like he did with the Mueller report and the cover up of crooked Hillary and Russia, Russia, Russia. And he put it all in caps. What kind of a child? I mean, I get Twitter trolls doing that and etc. But a child. He was Russia, 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 and Billy Barr covered it up. Why did he do that to me? What are you talking about? The Mueller report in Russia? Barr covered that up for you.
Totally.
For you. Mueller had all of these allegations of obstruction of justice, and Barr comes out and says, oh no, it vindicates him. And he won't let anybody read it, and has set the news cycle. He did everything for you. But there's nothing that is enough for Trump.
Exactly.
When are you idiot Republicans ever gonna understand that? Mike Pence was up his ass for 4 straight years. And then at the end, they're chanting, hang Mike Pence. And he won't call them off. He knew at that point that they were chanting to execute his vice president. And he told Kevin McCarthy, he's like, well, maybe you guys should have been more supportive of my claims about the election.
No, it's crazy.
He's a monster of monsters.
One of the other things that Trump is livid about is the fact that William Barr refused to announce a DOJ investigation into Hunter Biden in the lead up to the 2020 election, because that was one of the tricks that Donald Trump wanted to pull out of his hat in order to give him an edge in the general election. Like, oh, look at Hunter Biden. He's being investigated for the job that he got from his daddy at this, Burisma gas company. But William Barr was like, no, I'm not doing this. Like, shockingly, he's like, no. And so Trump was furious that there wasn't like an investigation announced by the DOJ, because he thought that would really help him win. And like, just get a load of what Trump wants to do in order to win politically. It's not to actually do right by the very people who got him elected in the first place, the very people who are still incredibly loyal to him, right? What did he do in his time in office other than pass tax cuts for the wealthy and honestly install more swamp monsters in the same swamp that he claimed to want to drain, right? So he's like, I'm not gonna deliver for people. I just want to announce sham investigations and actually rig the election to my favor.
Yeah.
That's who he is, that's who Donald Trump is. And William Barr helped him out all the way to like the very end where he's like, oh, I don't know, maybe lying about the 2020 election is not a good look. Maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, so look, everybody in this story is a bad guy. And so Barr trying to get credit now for standing up to Trump at the very last second, way too little too late. I'm glad he did, right? But it's not enough to redeem all of his terrible actions. Trump's a terrible guy, etc. But the most important part of the story is 2/3 of Republicans still believe that Joe Biden stole the election, stole it with illegal votes, okay? And they believe that poor Donald Trump is still the president. They believe these insane things. Why? Because they're only hearing Trump's side of the story. So right-wing media lies to them 24/7. And yes, they want to believe those lies, right? And so they're super happy to be lied to. Yes, we should still have power over the others. I'll believe that con man who tells me I should have power over them even though we lost the election. But Trump, in the longer version of the letter, talks about how it was proven conclusively that he had won. And then he does this laundry list of illegal alien votes, cash for votes scheme in Nevada, double feeding ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, thousands of ballots wheeled in through the back door in Fulton County, all these things. Now remember, they went to court and showed all of this, and they lost 60 times in a row, okay, Trump and his allies. So But Republican voters never heard that because they're watching right-wing media, and right-wing media lies as a matter of course. So they never talk about all the fake evidence they already presented in court. And the courts, including Trump appointees, laughed them out of court and said, this is outrageous. You have no evidence at all. All this is made up, right? But Republican voters never see it. So because they're watching Fox News and Newsmax, etc. And so they think, oh no, it was stolen. When do we do violence? That's why 28% of them said that they are ready to commit violence if they need to because of how bad the situation has gotten. Because they think democracy was stolen and that it's time to stand up to tyranny. So this is a very dangerous situation. Every time Trump opens his big stupid mouth, he further encourages our society to devolve. There's nothing you could do about it. He's former president. He does have speech, freedom of speech, of course. You can take, private companies can take them off their platforms because of how dangerous he is. But he can put out a statement from Mar-a-Lago, and every right winger believes it.
I think the psychology of Donald Trump is also super fascinating, right? Because if you look at his behavior, it just makes it abundantly clear that he's the type of guy who's never earned anything, but is used to having things handed to him. Because he literally cannot believe that he loses an election and someone doesn't just come in and save the day by handing him exactly what he wants.
Anna, that's such a great point, and I hadn't thought about it in the context of this story. But remember, we cover all of his bankruptcies. At one time, the fool runs out of money for like the 28th time in a row, and his daddy comes in and buys several $1 million worth of chips. He sends his lawyer to do it from one of his casinos, and then doesn't play. That's a way of illegally funneling millions of dollars to Donald Trump. And that's what rescues one of his casinos in the short run. Eventually he bankrupts it. He's the only person who's ever gone bankrupt running casinos.
It's amazing.
Okay, the house always wins unless it's run by the idiot Donald Trump. But every time that happens, somebody bails him out, right? And so in this case, he's like, well, I cheated just like every time I've done in my life. I was a total loser like every time in my life. And then this is the part where I'm supposed to get bailed out because of my privilege. And these people didn't bail me out. They just told the truth for once in their lives. Outrageous, execute them. They were chanting, hang Mike Pence. He's never apologized to Mike Pence.
Nope.
That's unbelievable. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.